Good morning. It's Friday. Hopefully, you're having a lovely day. Start to your weekend in a few hours, I hope. This is Seeking Sustainability Live number 52. And today we're talking with travel expert Sébastien Duval, who is working with Japan Travel and has a lot of experience and certifications and training in travel in many different parts of Japan. So I hope we'll have a great conversation. Thank you so much for joining, Sébastien.
Good morning, everybody. Thanks, Joy.
Do you want to briefly introduce yourself?
Yep, my name is Sébastien Duval. I'm French. I live in Tokyo. Like many people can see, everybody can see behind, right? I'm working from home these days, and I just came back from a trip, so I can see people are still alive everywhere in Japan and in a good mood. I've been trying to push for sustainable tourism, mostly through promoting vegan diets and electric car trips, cycling, these kind of things. And I'm working as community manager for a company called Japan Travels that promotes trips in Japan, especially we try to promote the countryside.
I am so impressed with your resume. How many higher degrees do you have? 2 masters and a PhD, is that right?
I have 3 master's degrees. Yeah,
Oh my
that's more like
goodness. What is your
it's
master's in?
the first one is in software engineering, so IT really, and the following one is in virtual reality, and the third one is in project management. It's mostly because I really didn't know what to do with my life, right? So I was trying to push until I would get my first job.
So
Um,
which one has been the most useful in terms
well,
of getting
and I
work?
did get a PhD after, right?
Okay.
In Japan, So the PhD was the most important for the beginning of the career, but now, of course, I'm doing travel stuff, so it's completely unrelated. It's
Wow.
just lots of knowledge I have, like many people could study in books or just by talking to people. So it's just one
Yeah.
way to get knowledge.
Interesting. You did IT,
Yep,
VR,
yep.
and then your PhD was in?
Smart clothing. So everything was really related to kind of high-tech um, computer science. So smart
Wow.
clothing would be just clothes with some sensors that would tell you, for example, if you're a firefighter, if the body temperature is getting too high, if there is
Wow.
something in the air. Could be used for athletes to follow exactly the movements if you have some kind of suit. Could be used for normal people also for to know if an old person is falling in the stairs, for example, to automatically call emergency services, for example.
Wow. Is that in use now anywhere around the world? People
Stuff
use
was
the Apple
already,
Watch, right? Is that kind of
yeah,
similar, right? Wearable technology.
yeah,
Um,
it's all the same domain, like ubiquitous computing, like smart cities. All this stuff is going moving together. It's more like finding what things are most adapted to which country and lifestyle. For example, in America with big homes and in Japan with small homes, completely different. It depends on how society is ready to accept things. For example, I could see when I was doing my studies that people in Japan would be very happy with grandpa having this kind of suit to know if they fall in the stairs, but they would not want to have any GPS on the kids because they would be afraid there would be maybe some stuff with stalkers and things like this. So things
wow.
that can depend a lot on society. And
That's really interesting.
yes,
Plus, you also got certified as a tour guide, right?
I got 3 certifications. The first one is as a tour conductor. The second one is as a tour guide for Tokyo City. And the third one is a tour guide for all Japan. So for people who don't know too much about tourism, tour conductor in Japan is mostly making sure a group would go from point A to point B, C, taking care of the receipts, handling all the things at the hotels and restaurant. And tour guide is really giving the explanations and answering specific questions. So it's very often in Japan you would have 2 people, in fact, in a tour in a bus, the conductor and the guide.
And you said you also did some work checking for barrier free as well as plant based or halal. You're really trying to consult or find information how accessible to a diverse group of travelers Japan is. What do you think? Is it getting better for different kinds of needs for travelers in Japan?
I think we have like really many different needs. The first one is a language, and things are getting better definitely in big cities, but still you might have trouble finding people who speak English in Asakusa, so it's kind of a bit frustrating. In the countryside, I think it's still very difficult. People are very nice and talk to you. Hospitality is good, but communication is not there yet, although everybody's studied English at school. And beyond that, of course, if you're French, if you're German, if you're Spanish, and you're not particularly good in English, it's an issue. So the language is one. I think many people have trouble finding information in their own language, of course, but even in English. So if we talk, for example, about vegans who want to have information about where to find food, they will have some success with maybe the new shops opening in Tokyo. Very classy ones. But if they go to Kansai, so the area with Nara, Osaka, Kyoto, where Buddhism started, so there are lots of shops and temples that provide vegan food called shoji in ryori, that information will probably be mostly in Japanese. So that's also impactful. I think if you travel with kids, things are okay. But if you have a stroller, probably the space you have, for example, in subway path in the elevators will be a bit too narrow because the Japanese kids are a bit small compared to, let's say, French or American kids. And often you look at
I
a kind
remember
of,
that
yeah,
years ago. You know, when I had my kids were small and I used a stroller, Tokyo was one of the hardest places to travel around. I
I
had to
think it's,
carry the
yeah.
stroller up the stairs. But I think in recent years, there's more elevators. There's a little bit more of a barrier-free network. But certain
Yeah.
stations, the older stations maybe are more difficult, right?
Well, the thing is, it's just retrofitting, so you need to find a space to put an elevator, and stations in Tokyo can be really spreading over underground, right? So you might have an elevator on one side, but if you want to go to the other side, or if you start to move in one direction, you just don't have an elevator. So yeah, I think it's more difficult in Tokyo. Tokyo has been changing a lot outdoors because when you destroy a building now, you have to make sure there is enough space in front of it for the firefighters to park instead of having a very narrow path. So that's easier to move around outside. But underground, that's not really something that can be done easily, right?
Yeah.
And so
Still,
yeah,
still a
for
challenge.
vegans and stuff like this, vegans, I think the main thing is finding information is one. And for the shops, very often they have irregular closing days, so it's difficult. When you go a bit outside, let's say Kamakura instead of Tokyo, having a guide can be good too, especially if you don't want to plan to go at a specific time at a specific place. You can just ask the guy if there is something around here. One problem is probably with the bakeries because you never know what's inside the bread. I mean, things are written in Japanese. So if you read Japanese, it's okay. If you're with a guide or a friend who lives here, it's fine. But otherwise, let's say you travel with kids, you just say, okay, the kid is hungry, so let's buy something, and you buy some bread, and when you open, there is azuki in it, and the kids start to cry, and it just fucks up your whole day, right? So that's a difficult one. It can be
Recently,
bacon too.
when I've done some guide training in the station, Hiroshima Station, we went to some bakeries just to talk about how, like, when I changed to vegan from vegetarian, I couldn't eat any of the breads in any typical bakery in Japan anymore because everything was made with milk, everything was made with butter.
Yep,
And so for me, going from vegetarian to vegan was really hard in Japan because
it's tough.
there are lots of bakeries everywhere, but there was so little available. But when I asked at the bakery, they actually have a lot of the allergy information now. So if you ask about allergies, usually they can tell you
Mm.
exactly which breads have exactly which ingredients. And so I find for packaging or the list of allergy ingredients, it seems to be getting better in Japan. It's a little bit more transparent.
Yeah, I think there is one issue with that. You have been here for a long time, so you know many of the products are seasonal. So it's not like you create one menu with the
Right.
information
Yeah.
and it costs a certain amount of money and work. It's like you have new products all the time, so it's difficult for the shops to uh, to keep up with what is really on sale. So you might have maybe some information for typical things, but not for all the seasonal things.
That's true.
Um,
Let's switch a little bit to your challenge to be clean living. I love this, that you're trying to meditate every day, you're trying to eat healthy. How's it going during the stay-at-home reality?
um, Meditation, it's even easier now because I know I don't have to worry about taking my train on time, so I can just take my time and meditate. I meditate in the morning only. I think probably I should try in the evening too, but not yet. I've just went on a business trip for 5 days, and I could not meditate even once because I was just running all the time. We arrived with a ferry at 5:40. We started to work immediately. Following day, going to a shrine to photograph a beautiful 650-year-old tree at 6:30 in the morning, finishing at 10:30 evening. So it's difficult on business trips.
Yeah.
At home, other things, drinking more water, which was not the case before. I was drinking lots of tea and much more coffee. I think when I go to work with my colleagues, I have coffee just to spend time with my colleagues, at least some of them. But now it's just coffee just in the morning instead of several times. Food, my breakfasts are all vegan, so I moved from cow milk to soy milk, cereals, fruits. All my snacks also now very easy to get in specific shops or to order online, for example, with Alishan. In fact, if I move, I have my subscription box, monthly subscription box, Visual. I'm not sure how to pronounce the thing. I've started during COVID, so that was the opportunity to start all the delivery thing. But for lunch and dinner, I'm flex basically, so I try to eat less meat and fish. But yeah, I still have lots of cheese. I've tried some good vegan cheese recently, but it's so
You.
expensive.
Hmm.
So I would probably need prices to go down to make that more
Yeah.
like convenient.
Cheese. I've just cut out cheese altogether. It's too hard to get vegan cheese. Katie O'Brien, when we talked to her from Eco di Eco of Instagram, she has been making feta style cheese
Yeah.
from tofu. So she has a recipe she's doing with smashing tofu, dehydrating tofu, adding some flavor or something. So I think cheese is very difficult to find without dairy, right?
Yeah, so
Yeah.
maybe from home, the easy thing would be to use a bread making machine for the bread.
I'm doing
And my
that.
girlfriend is
Yeah.
doing hummus very
Yeah.
often
Oh,
and some
hummus is
variation.
lovely.
That's so easy to do with a food
Yeah.
processor, but you need a food processor. And that makes like a full meal, especially in summer when you're not very hungry. It's just so hot.
Yeah. Yeah, for us, reducing plastic, my one of my targets was to make my own bread every day because you end up buying so much plastic in the bread loaf because
Mm,
they sell bread in
yeah.
such small bags. So making vegan bread every day at home has been healthy, but also reducing the plastic waste.
Yeah, I followed a bit on Twitter. You share quite a few photos and it's really nice.
I think
So you see,
everybody
you wake up
does.
very early sometimes to prepare your bread, but
So early, yeah. I think everybody's baking bread during coronavirus stay at home, right? This is a big push. Everybody's trying to make bread.
yeah. And I could spend a bit more time on the balcony too. So now we have mint, we have basil. I don't have a garden, so probably there will be no tomatoes, but
Oh,
it's just
tomatoes, yeah.
it feels like it's different lifestyle, just these small things. But of course, like for travelers, that's some things they can do, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Well, let's look at some of your trips that you've
mhm.
done, and then we can talk about is it going to be possible after our new reality, after
Yep.
coronavirus, to do these kinds of trips? So you were talking about going into the rural areas between Tokyo and Osaka.
Okay. Well, I've done so many trips all over Japan over the 15 years. I think when I was doing my PhD, there were very few classes, and I had a very good scholarship from the French government. So that's when I started to travel. So I flew a bit, which was not very sustainable friendly, right? To go to the Sapporo Yuki Matsuri, the winter festival, was one of my first big trips. And now I'm really sad because there is less snow and it's warmer. So all the statues are difficult to create and they melt. So we do see an impact of climate change already on just tourism in that sense. Going all around Japan is mostly by train, so it's pretty good. The system is extremely good in Japan. It's a bit complicated with different companies. It's not necessarily cheap, but works really well. And I had the chance to drive a few electric cars too.
Yeah, we'll
But
talk about that a bit later.
yeah.
Can you tell us about your Hokkaido trip in Sapporo? And you did ecotourism and Ainu tourism?
Yes, so I moved many places in Hokkaido. I went several times because it's a big island and it looks very different in winter and in summer. One of the things people should really go see is red-crested cranes in Kushiro. I think in Japan we can really enjoy the seasons. That's a very good way to plan the trips. You don't really need to go to concerts and stuff like this. You have so much to enjoy on a natural basis. Hokkaido is so big, you don't want really to go by train, so you will take a plane to go to the closest airport, and after you will just drive around, and it's very easy to find an electric car now. The problem in Hokkaido,
Is
it's a bit,
it possible to rent electric cars? Is that
yeah,
right?
it's
Oh,
possible, yeah.
great.
Well, but most of the shops all over Japan, I think you can find electric cars, but it will be only they will have only one car, and if you don't plan in advance, it may not be available on site. It may be available at different place, so you have to plan, and it's more expensive, definitely, right? Um,
But the charging network, the charging infrastructure in Japan is really good.
it depends on places. So for Hokkaido, it's big distances. I don't think it's that good in Hokkaido, but places like the Noto Peninsula, people probably know Kanazawa, which is one of the destinations like famous for gold products. So Noto Peninsula around that place, I think has more than 40 different charging stations. There is a project, I think was Toyota with the local government. They made sure that this was possible. And I went there with a car that was not an electric car because I didn't know that at that moment. I discovered that at the airport when I was seeing the thing, but we had already everything planned. And when I was driving around, I was just checking the place, and there were just chargers everywhere. The hotels too, on the parking, you could charge during the night. So really no time spent. If you go to Shimanami Kaido, from island to island, you also find places to charge. The Goto Archipelago, which is really countryside. Probably most people don't know it unless they are Christians and they are focusing on pilgrimage. All you can rent electric cars at very small shops, several ones, and you can charge everywhere. So
It
in
looked like
fact,
you did a great electric car trip. Michimo,
yeah,
Nissan.
so that was near, people probably know Nara, which is the start of Buddhism, and a bit south you have Kashihara, which is the first capital of Japan. So this is where we have the tomb of the first Japanese emperor, Jimmu. And I think it was tourism office that started to create a program where people could rent an electric car. So I think it's a small Nissan thing. You have only two seats, so the driver and somebody behind. And if you have bags, there is no space. So when I traveled the first time, I didn't know that. I went back just to try it. And I just put my bags behind. Probably there are new models, a bit safer, a bit bigger. You are restricted in the distance you can go, but basically you can visit all the tourist spots in the area. You can't go too fast, but I mean, in any case, speed limitations in Japan are what, 40 or 50 most of the time, kilometers per hour. And you can go everywhere. And because the car is small, you can just park very conveniently too. It was a big surprise. Also, I could get some entrance fees, like I could enter for free some places because I was paying with the electric car. So it was a good plan. I think there are many things that are possible all around Japan for that. And the advantage is, I think many people will not want to travel in Japan by car because they can't read the kanji. It's driving on the left. But in fact, when we have these kind of cars that are not that powerful, you don't have to worry too much about having an accident because you're not going to go too fast. And
Well,
the area is
these
organized
little
well.
cars are probably not very powerful, but I have a Tesla, and it is very powerful, and it's all
Yeah,
electric.
yeah.
So
That's big for
so
somebody who
it's
lives in
not
Japan,
all
yes.
electric cars, you know.
No, no, no. This is the one I tried, but beyond that, yeah, the real electric cars or the hybrids, of course, you can do whatever you want, right? So
Mhm.
if you are with a family,
I
definitely you
I
want that.
heard there were these kind of schemes for renting these smaller electric cars around Mount Aso in Kumamoto and around Mount Fuji in Shizuoka, but they have stopped. They didn't continue. It was only a pilot. So I'm really glad to hear that they're trying this in Kashihara. I hope they continue.
Kashiara, they even did it. In fact, it was not just the city itself. There is Asuka, which is another ancient capital. It's a village a bit nearby. They have another area. So you have this kind of two areas where you can drive with a car. And I think it fits very well the ambience. I mean, you're in the countryside, it's quiet, nobody's driving like crazy. You don't have the boss of the crew with their like the big bags, and you have time to see the flowers. You can stop anywhere, and it's a bit more convenient than cycling in some ways. Depends really what you want to do.
Yeah, it kind of opens it up to people who maybe they want to travel quietly, but they don't have the energy to cycle. You know, I love
Yeah,
cycling around as well, but some, you know, for whatever reason, maybe physically or because of time or energy, you don't have the ability to do that. But electric cars, what one of the things I was surprised about, which I love traveling by electric car, is it's so quiet.
yeah,
So you can, different from traveling in a gas car or a diesel car, you can hear the birds, you can hear everything. It's such a lovely way to enjoy natural areas. So
yeah.
I
No, I agree.
really hope they expand the electric car rentals because it's a great way to see the countryside. And we really want to encourage people to get out to the countryside now because it's possible to social distance and hopefully, you know, support the local economies as well, right?
Yeah, sure. And I think for public transportation, the government is pushing for hydrogen. So many buses like this, probably no hydrogen car. But the problem we have in both cases is whether the electricity or the hydrogen is created in a sustainable way. And I think it's not the case in most places. So in the case of Noto Peninsula, I was talking about that more than 40 stations, they ensure the electricity is going from solar or wind. So you know you are doing like a fully green trip in that specific area. I'm not sure about the other ones, need to check. And I think now we have electric companies providing, is it Shizen Denki, right?
Mm-hmm.
For people who live in Japan, they can make sure the electricity they get is from renewable sources. So hopefully this will also just kind of extend to this
Mm-hmm.
kind of businesses. I think it's possible.
Yeah. I
Um,
know you mentioned Maimizu in your
yeah.
Japan travel, right? So we talked to Robin Lewis of Maimizu in Seeking Sustainability Live number 20. And they've done such a great job at expanding the app network to find out where to refill. But also, they are collaborating with the electricity sourcing company.
Hmm.
So I just changed, and now we have solar panels, but when we need to get power from the grid, it's 100% renewable because my local supplier has to pay them for the renewable energy. So that's a really nice option. Even
Yep,
if you
that's
don't
really
have
good.
solar, right? You can
Yeah.
choose to get sourced, provided from renewable energy. I know here you mentioned some others renewable energy like solar arc, Yamakura Dam, Nissan Opama
Yeah,
plant.
this is most like a long list of places I want to visit and just
Okay.
need to find the time to go to all these places. I think people visiting Japan who are interested in renewable energy should try to go to Kyushu and visit like a geothermal um, production center because it's a bit more unique to Japan.
Mm-hmm.
But you travel all around Japan, and especially in places like Tottori, Hokkaido, you will see your wind farms everywhere. We have floating solar production center. I think it's in Chiba. I'm not really sure. So there are many places to visit. And I don't think any travel agency is really proposing that. So you might want to ask, people might want to ask a travel agent if they can organize something, especially if
Yeah.
they are a group or very
But
interested.
industrial tourism is for seeing efficient technology or renewable technology or industry. That's big business for tourism. And
Yep.
a lot of people want to visit high-tech countries like Japan and learn
Yeah.
about high technology that they can adapt to their country. And of course, Japan, big industry like Mitsubishi, Toyota, Nissan, they export a lot of this infrastructure and technology as well. So it becomes a tourism, part of tourism business. People want to see it. I've never visited geothermal power plant. I wonder if there's a lot you can see if you visit, because everything happens underground, right?
Well, the work I'm doing as a consultant, you have access to more things than a normal traveler. So you can always see stuff. It depends a bit on the places. And it depends also if you're a business person, because people coming like um, as researchers, as engineers, as somebody who might just be acquiring technology or acquiring products, you are given lots of explanations and access to places too. As a guide, I've been taking people a lot to factories. I can't really give lots of names, but what you see is really impressive. And I agree with you. People want to see the high-tech part of Japan, the normal people, because I think people are like me when I came to Japan the first time. Either you are on the manga or anime part, so just put that aside, or you just imagine Japan as being the place with the robots and all the high-tech, like toilet seat opening like this. And I think there is still that image. Plus, people studying business are studying like Kaizen methods, things like this. So they are very aware. And seeing a factory, seeing a production site, it's not just seeing what you can see, it's also seeing how things are organized, how people interact. It's just seeing this kind of checklist that are stuck on the walls, the security part, and what they do with the defects, defective stuff or like the kind of waste that remains. And
Have
Japan
you
is
have you
pretty
ever
good with that way.
visited any of the indoor farms? There's a few indoor farms around Japan I'd like to visit. In Nagasaki in Haustenbosch, they
Hmm.
have a renewable energy plant, which I wanted to visit, but you have to reserve in advance. Maybe you can get some special treatment. But also they do indoor farming down there. And I heard in Tohoku, they're also doing indoor farming and places in Tokyo. So they're doing like inside the building with special lights and everything. So that's
Hmm.
really
Hmm.
interesting in terms of growing your own food, self-sustainable food networks.
Yeah, no, I've not visited any of these places, but I know the use of space tends to be pretty getting more efficient in Japan. You just go in the countryside, you will see production of, I don't know, um, tomatoes or whatever, and you have solar panels on top of it, right? So um, many things that are done in many different ways in Japan. And yeah, indoor farming is just something that's on my to see list when I have time. Right?
Yeah.
Problem with
Well,
Japan is really the distances are really big, so you
yeah.
need really to spend time. And
It,
it's mountainous, and the
mhm.
speed limits are low, so you need to plan things.
Yeah.
If you're a tourist, it's okay, but if you have a job, it's
It's hard to get time and money to do that. Let's talk a little bit about your recommendations in Tokyo for eating vegan. You have this really great vegan option on the terrace. At,
yes. I need to check the name because I'm forgetting the names. I've been spending too much time inside inside my home. Yeah, there is the Leaful Table. I think the company is a huge company. It's a huge company. There is a headquarter in Osaka and in Tokyo, and it's mostly created for the staff to go eat. And they have a vegan option every day. It's not really an option. It's just one of the menus is completely vegan. There is always something vegan unless it's sold out. So I was trying to go before 1 p.m.
you
They have
also
other
mentioned
stuff.
at the National Theater of Japan, there was a nice vegan option there. Whenever I go to Tokyo, I feel spoiled because you have so much choice compared to other parts of Japan. Other parts of Japan, it's still hard to find vegan options. But in Tokyo, you have so many great all vegan places. So vegans can eat very well. Like in Tokyo Station, you've got
Yes.
Tantan vegan ramen,
You get your
you
sushi bento too.
sushi bento.
Yeah. I
And
think
now Most Burger has the vegan plant burger, and you reviewed that.
yes.
Do you want
Yes.
to tell us your opinion of the plant burger?
Okay, so the plant burger is called a green burger, and for one thing, it's green, so maybe it's not visible on photos. People would see because it depends on the light. But the bread, top and bottom, contains some spinach, so it's green. It's fully plant-based. I think people knew Bones Burger already because they had some soy-based meat, but it was not really vegan. I think there was some dairy or eggs in it. So they just started in May to have a fully vegan meal. And I think it's pretty good. People in America probably would feel the thing is way too small because most burger is not famous for the size of the portions. Maybe you need to get two, but the taste is really pretty good. The texture is fine. It's not like you're eating a beef burger,
No,
of course,
yeah.
right? It has its own taste, not in a bad way. It's a very nice flavor.
Mm-hmm.
I know some people have complained it's a bit too there is a bit too much air, so it's probably not hard enough. I think it depends on the expectation of people. But as I told you, my lunch and dinners are not vegan yet. I'm flex, so my perspective is really from a flex person. So vegans, I believe, would find it wonderful. People who are used to meat would find it maybe not hard enough or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
but
But I think
pretty good.
as long as we're talking about accessibility and ease of
Yeah,
travel for people who are plant-based, now Most Burger, a national
yeah,
chain across Japan, has a fully vegan option, which is not a salad, which is not just a dessert, right? It's a main dish. So it's a little expensive, it's a little small, but man, it's available.
it's
So
even
yeah.
more than that, in fact, because so yeah, it's a national chain, so you can find that in most big places. But there are two additional things. One is, of course, it's also takeout, so you can just buy and eat a bit later, and I can tell you it's okay when it's a bit cold. So if you want to just buy something and then eat later, it's fine. You don't have to plan to go to Moss Burger at that specific time. And the other thing is some of the shops are open really late. I
Mm-hmm.
was in Fukuoka to take a boat, and I checked when Moss Burger was closing near one of the station, and it was 3 a.m. So nowadays with the
Wow.
coronavirus, they had different time. They close at 9 p.m. in fact. So
Yeah.
I arrived really
That's
just on time.
great.
But
And in terms of sustainability, I think Most Burger is one of the more sustainable chains
I
because
think
they're
yeah,
very transparent. On every menu board in the front of every shop, they say, today our onions come from Hokkaido and our lettuce comes from Miyazaki. And they're very clear about sourcing the vegetables from local producers.
yep.
And
I think
you won't
this is
find
what they
that.
started at the
Yeah,
beginning. Is they
most
focused from
places.
the when the company was created, they wanted to have good taste. Of course, was one. I think the other thing was to have something healthy. So even if it was with meat and fish and whatever, right? Healthy globally. And the third thing was to use really I'm not sure I can say local product, but let's say domestic production at least.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not really sure if they take the closest
Well,
producers.
compared to other fast food chains, who
They're the best probably in that sense,
I've had
especially.
students over the years that work for the biggest fast food chains, and they say everything is imported. Everything comes frozen and is just warmed up. So Most Burger is more expensive, but it is really supporting the local agriculture and local economy a lot more.
Yeah,
Also, in
I'm not
terms
sure I
of
would say it's very, it's not really expensive, right? I mean,
some
people might
people
imagine it's really much more.
complain,
It's
yeah,
just
people
maybe
complain
above slightly, for
a
example,
little bit,
McDonald's, right?
yeah.
But it's not like
But
you,
also, if you eat in Most Burger, I know most people doing takeout now, but if you eat in Most Burger, they have also reusable containers. reusable basket, reusable cups, which no other fast food place is doing, right? And even if you do takeout, it's usually in a paper bag. So it's not as much plastic as if you're at another fast food chain, right?
Yeah, no, it's not much plastic.
A bit
That's
better.
really, yeah.
Do you know Coco's Ichibana? That's another good choice nationally. They have
Yes.
vegan soup, vegan curry, vegan vegetarian, halal as well. So in terms of national chains, Coco's Ichibana is another great choice, right?
Yeah, I'm not sure most halal stuff is all over Japan, maybe
No, a
selected shops,
few,
but I think
yeah.
the vegan stuff is all over Japan now. The taste is okay. For people who like more dry curry like me, it feels a bit too liquid, but that's really a personal taste. And in
Yeah.
any case, you find what you want. And they also sell just a thing to take out to cook at your home if you want. I've done that once.
You also
It's
reviewed in Tokyo the Pink Cow. You said is a
Yep,
good place for burritos.
yep. It's very, very good. I think there were two, and maybe now there is only one. I went to the one in Roppongi, and there is the other one in Akasaka, I think. Not really sure about the exact location, but in that
Yeah,
area.
I've been there as well. Very good. And then you went to the Tokyo Vegan Yoga Festival.
This one is in Yokohama. I went to a few festivals. Probably you just saw my video on YouTube, and this is in Yokohama. I think it's basically two festivals that take place at the same time. So there is a yoga thing and there is a vegan thing, and because they do it together, just changing the name, it's really cool because you have all these people, and you also have an area of doing yoga. You have an area for people to do yoga with their dogs. So there is this kind of small, kind of fenced area, and you see people with it's small dogs in Japan, right? And you have all the shops like the food trucks, and you have some advertising for cooking lessons. They don't do it on site. You can also buy products, things like this. And there is at least there are several big vegan festivals in Tokyo. Some of the shops are coming from all over the place. I mean, all over Japan. For people who live in Nagoya, the same thing is organized in Tokyo. I think Tokyo, Nagoya. Not really sure if it's Fukuoka or Kyoto. In many places.
Yeah, we went to a vegan festival last year in Fukuoka. So I know they are happening around the country. But it's so nice to see yoga and vegan festival together. I love that combination.
Yeah, I think many people are happy with that, and it's a good ambience because if you just do a vegan festival, it looks like you're just coming to just eat something, and you don't have a very good reason to stay unless just queuing to buy vegan cheese from England, for example, because some of the stuff comes from abroad, right?
Yeah.
So I would like, in a way, I would really like to have vegan festivals not be vegan festivals. I would like festivals to be vegan. So with many other things to enjoy on site.
Yeah, for sure. I went to a very disappointing Lojas festival, which is Lojas is supposed to be
Yep.
more environmentally friendly and everything. And they had lots of food trucks, but all of them were meat. There was not one option, not one that was
Yeah, I'm not surprised.
plant-based.
Yeah.
But this is a huge problem for environmentalism, for reducing our climate change impact, is reducing our meat consumption. That's a major part of sustainability. And so I had to talk to the organizers and say, you have to at least have one option. You can't have all meat. I know
Yeah.
they're trying to balance what is the demand of the customer and what's
Yeah,
going
but
to
this is where
attract.
there is a change, in fact, because I think the two biggest meat companies, it's like Nippon Ham, and there is another one, have started to make plant-based meat. I think this is news from May too. One is doing a fully plant-based meat product, and the other one is more like making a mix, so reducing the amount of meat and putting plants in it. And I think Japanese are extremely good with technology, and maybe they're not the best inventors, but they are very, very good at improving and testing and improving and everything. So I think these companies are going to do great, just creating very nice textures, whether it's based on soy or other things, and to create very, very good taste.
Well, to look at the market around the world, the plant-based meat, like the meat alternatives, Beyond Meat, and those kind of companies are booming. That, of course,
Yeah,
it's a good time to create a Japanese version. That's a wonderful idea. Because,
I think
and
there
people,
is uni too. I'm not really sure how is uni in sea
wow.
urchin, right?
Uh-huh.
Vegan sea urchin. Um, and
Interesting.
apparently, people don't really make the difference between the real thing or not. I suppose normal people, I mean, standard people, right? I suppose specialists would notice. But so we have stuff like this coming
I mean, at the
in Japan.
vegan festival, you tried the vegan sushi. Tell us about it.
They were really good. So it just looks like, if you don't really pay too much attention, it just looks like normal sushi for one thing. I think you would have on top something like instead of squid, you get like coconut. Instead of salmon tuna, you would get some kind of red, white ginger. Can be eggplant on top. If it's made with small eggs, how is this thing called? It's a yama something. It's something from the mountains. Just don't remember the name now. And the taste is extremely good. It's a bit different. You will notice it. It's not salmon. It's not tuna, but it's extremely good. And the advantage in summer is that you have less chances to have food poisoning if you wait. So you can just really move around and eat at a different place. But if you were eating fish sushi, you would have to be much more careful too. And I've been helping organize a few years ago an international conference in Tokyo, and we had ordered this kind of sushi, vegan sushi for Indian people and other attendees. And the thing was so popular. People were just were curious, wanted to try, and people really like it. Was very,
Mm.
very successful.
That's really exciting and something you don't see yet in Japan. But of course, this is Japan. People want to eat sushi. Even if they're vegan, they want to try. So this would be a great alternative to open the market to everybody.
Yep,
That's one of the things I've heard you say before is if you have vegan options, everybody can eat it. You
yep,
know,
yep,
right? And
yeah.
that's what I often say too is that it's a no-brainer. Meat eaters can eat it, fish eaters can eat it, vegans can eat it. You know,
I think
people
probably
halal
Muslims
can
can
eat
eat
it.
most of the
Yeah.
things. We need to check the details. People with allergies get also much easier, so it's easier for kids too. Um, so yeah, it's really everybody can eat it, right? And
Yeah.
in some cases, people will just find the stuff like extraordinary. It really depends where you go. I think we have vegan restaurants. Some of them are just expensive and not so good, so they make vegans happy because they exist, but not other people. But in other places, you just get like incredible food and
Mm-hmm.
can be just beautiful and tasty. The only thing we miss in Japan, I think, is the smell, right? Because Japanese people don't create food with smell. So it's
Oh.
just if you go to France or Korea, you would have the smell on top of it. But
I
the
love
taste and
the
texture is really
subtle,
good.
the light smell. I love like the smell of shiso.
I'm
This
more into Sancho.
right that
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
you have very
Chichimi, stuff like
mild
this.
smells with Japanese food, and I really love that. The smell of
Yeah.
miso. Oh,
But maybe it's because, like me, you have been here for a long time. So I've been
yes,
here 15 years, right? And we
maybe.
got used also to a lighter taste. I remember
That's
when I came
true.
to Japan and I had real sushi.
Yeah.
I couldn't really make the difference. I felt like it was not tasty at all. It took me a few years, and now I can make the difference. But for vegan food, I think in a way vegan food can be a bit more like a bit tastier in some ways because the vegetables we have in Japan are so high quality, and people pay so much attention to just selecting good products and good producers. So
Yeah, the
yeah,
most typical vegan food in Japan is, of course, shojin yori, which you have reviewed a few times around the
yep.
country. I think shojin yori is particularly bland. It's very healthy, but usually there's not a lot of flavor, but that's on purpose. It's part of the, I don't,
Well, yeah.
cleanse or something, right?
So vegan, vegan. There are many things in vegan, right? So vegan is basically no animal product. So that's the easy definition. But there is Asian vegan, and that would be without onions, without
Garlic.
garlic.
Mm-hmm.
Things like this, so things that could give some additional taste. And Shoujin Yori, I think, is following that pattern. So
Mm-hmm.
it's a bit blunt. There's,
Right.
if you're really in the mountains and they just go get the mushrooms, the bamboo nearby, you can have stuff that's so tasty. It's also because it's very fresh. Just local product. And I've had some very, very good miso soup, I think.
Oh,
But
it's
this
it's
is kind of
wonderful, yeah.
everywhere, right?
But
Even when it's not
you
vegan.
have to be kind of used to Japanese food and Japanese flavors to really enjoy shoujin-ryouri. I think it's a bit of a high hurdle for people who come from abroad and have a lot of very flavorful vegan food, and then to try shoujin-ryouri. I think often I hear people say, it's just so bland, right? There's no flavor. Let's switch gears a little bit. Let's talk about your trip to Dewa Sanzan.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah?
Dewa Sanzan is just basically Sanzan is the three mountains, so that's the three mountains of Dewa. It's a very famous holy place. The three mountains represent the past, present, and future. I think it's got Gassan, Haguro, and Yudono. And people who do a pilgrimage there, that's one of the pilgrimage parts. That's in Yamagata. It's a bit north of it's north of Tokyo, and it's just a great area. You don't have that many people going there, or they stay a very short time. So if you spend enough time, people disappear basically. The different areas have a completely different feeling. What I really liked in Gassan, depends on the season, but it was lots of flowers on the mountain. Haguro is famous for its pagoda, for example. Yudono is famous for the hot springs. So you will not find many photos because it's forbidden to take photos of the hot springs, but the hot springs are really part inside the holy site. And
Is this where you had the private room, the private onsen room? Oh no, not
not
the
in this
private.
one, but I mean, you can get like private rooms for hot springs really, really everywhere in Japan. You just know how to ask for it. And the good thing with Dewa Sanzan is because it's for pilgrims, you have most of the inns that will provide meals that are completely vegan, and they look really, really good. Very good tofu, probably very different from what people would get in Osaka,
Oh, I
Hiroshima, or
love
Tokyo.
good tofu, yeah.
And you just get things to take with you on the way. It's super relaxing. You had already very few people for the coronavirus thing, and the good thing is it takes time, so you can just really take the time to enjoy instead of running from one place to another one. And I've been trying to motivate people to not travel to Japan, but to come live in Japan, because I've met people who have come to Japan 12 times already. And I told them, man, just stop flying. That's just terrible for the environment. Come for 6 months, 3 months, 6 months, 1 year, and just take the time to meet the locals, to just go to all the events you can go to, because if you have a big time like this, you can just choose your destinations based on that, and explore a lot, and maybe take a car to go really in the countryside and get lost. And it's fine to get lost.
I'm always impressed by European travelers, and I think this might be the future of travel to anywhere, including Japan, is really taking time to travel.
Well, I'm
So
French, so
we have,
I think the
right?
average traveler in Japan is spending more than 21 nights.
Yeah.
I mean, let's say 1 or 2 years ago, right? 21 nights average. So that means some people probably just stay for 10 days and some people stay for 2 months.
Right.
So
I've met so many French travelers, German travelers, travelers from all parts of Europe who travel in Japan for 2 months, 1 month or 2 months, and they take their time and they stay in different areas longer. And I think in terms of the future of travel all over the world, but including Japan, this has to be the norm, because travel by airplane is going to be so much more expensive and so much more difficult to do, that you have to invest in your travel, which is a good thing, because you're not going to get the travelers who are just like, okay, saw that, check, let's go next place. All right, saw it, check, took a photo, right? Which is not good for local areas. To have
But
that
I think
kind of
also
quick
maybe
traveler.
people will have the opportunity now to just be working. So
Right.
when people were taking maybe 2 months holidays, that was really holidays, but they could just spend 2 months in Japan or 3 months in Japan and just work specific days. So you can you can just work remote. Many people now can work remote, and the companies are used to that. And in Japan, you can just find a good connection. Everybody has a laptop to move around. You just have the probably time difference, which will be an issue. And just going around like this, you can just really go in the countryside and see. Japan has very beautiful national parks, and you need to spend time. Some things you want to do is, for example, see the flying squirrels, but you need to be there at night. Maybe it's not every day, so it's better to spend 2 or 3 nights in the area to make sure you can see that and just do other things during that time. Can be a mix of walking, hiking, cycling, doing sup, canoeing, kayaking. I think some people also do like jump from planes and do paragliding or many things. I've not done these ones. I'm a bit scared of heights. So, but
But the adventure
so much to
sports like zip lining around Mount Fuji.
yeah, I've done that.
Have you?
Yeah,
Oh.
I've done that near Mount Fuji. In fact, I was accompanying a group of professionals, and I would probably not have gone by myself because I was not thinking it would be so interesting. It's really, really good. And we
Was it
have that.
expensive? How much did it cost?
I really don't remember.
No.
I
Okay.
think it was something like around 5,000 or 6,000 yen.
That's
So
all
that would
right.
be like, let's say $50. But
It
considering
looked
how many hours you spend
amazing.
outside, it's per
Yeah.
hour, it's not huge, right?
And you have a view of Mount Fuji as you're zip lining down?
This one, no, but there are several spots. So maybe if you choose another one, yeah. But for during lunch, we could see Mount Fuji. You can go on the lakes after for a cruise and see Mount Fuji. So, I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think I would like to see Mount Fuji while I'm zip lining because I would just like end up a bit dangerous.
Yeah, maybe too distracting. We have zip lining in the Hiroshima area too, but in the forest. So you're zip lining tree to tree and
Yep.
walking, and that's really fun.
And you go up and down with the nets and stuff like this.
So
That's
there's
really cool.
all over Japan in different rural areas. I think there is more adventure sports. There's more kayaking. I talked to Dave Enright from Nagano
Yep.
in Hakuba. He does a lot of adventure sports there in Hakuba in summer and winter. So I think there is a lot of great options outdoors where you can still do social distance. You can still see beautiful places, but I think this is probably reality of post-COVID travel. You have to be outdoors, I think.
Yeah, I would expect, I think already people traveling to Japan, many people are repeaters now. I've already come quite a few times, so they don't need to go again they don't need to. They've seen the main spots in Tokyo, Kyoto, Osaka. So they are more likely to go to other places. Maybe they will feel more confident about having a car. And I would expect more people to try to go off the beaten path, definitely. So I'm not really sure how travel agencies will handle that because many have just create products and just sell the same thing to people because it takes so much time to recreate products.
Right, yeah.
But that's probably not going to work that much. And I think you were talking about Mimi's. So for people just doing their own trip, it's just so helpful to have these kind of applications because you just find local resources with that, like just there. But
and like renting mountain huts or renting your own onsen bath, those kinds of things maybe is more possible, is more attractive in the future because you don't really want to be in closed spaces with lots of other people, right? But
that's true, and it can be really, really cheap. I think I did that in Nagano a few years ago around Christmas time. So I could go just cook inside. You can have your cooking space even in this place, right? So you just go to a supermarket first, and you go to your own hot spring, or you go to a hot spring nearby. But if there are not too many people, you're just alone. And in my case, I was just everywhere, and I could just like enjoy the mountains and I think this is really good, and people can do that in any season, right? We have the autumn leaves, we have the flower season. Just summer is probably not what I would recommend, but in mountains, it's like much better. So.
Go to the mountains in summer. Let's talk about dinosaurs in Fukui for a couple minutes.
Yeah. This is, Fukui has probably one of the top 3 museum for dinosaurs. You have statues on the streets, in front of the. You have, I think it was animated in front of the main station of Fukui, and inside the museum you have like huge spaces. Some of the stuff is robots that move. You have like reconstitutions of dinosaurs that are beautiful, like real scale. And you have unique dinosaurs because some of them are even called like Fukui raptor or things like this. So for people who really like it, it's nice. And there are different rocks, I mean gems, things like this, stuff for the kids. It's a very, very good place. I would
And
really
you
recommend
were
it.
driving a car. You would recommend renting a car and driving around?
You don't really have a choice, I
Yeah.
think. You can go by trains and take a bus or something like this, but some areas of Japan you just should rent a car and just
It's
move around
easier
like
in
this.
rural areas, isn't it?
Yeah,
Um,
especially instead of taking the bus, because when there is a traffic jam or the weather is not so good, you completely lose control of the situation and you might just be blocked for 2 hours instead of going to a different place, for example.
Now we've got 5 more minutes,
Hmm.
and I found this video that you did for Get Japan, where you talked about your
Ah,
top 5 tips to prepare for a trip to Japan. Do you have like your basically your top 5 was prepare, right?
yeah.
Do you have top 5 tips for us now after COVID? Is it changed a little bit? Is it about the same?
Uh, no, it would be different. For one thing, I would tell people just to come live in Japan instead of just preparing to come to Japan. Just come live to Japan. I think all the events are out now. So if you really want to enjoy festivals, just probably virtual tours would work much better.
Mm-hmm.
I think there are very good documentaries too people can enjoy before coming to Japan. My top advice. Just try the vegan food, especially if you're in Kansai, but also all the new stuff um, to help support the initiative. For example, Moss Burger, I hope they will do lots of sales and they will get more products and their competitors will kind of copy them.
Mm-hmm.
So you want to promote these kind of things. Um,
Are
I
there
think you want to drive a car, just go
mm-hmm.
in the countryside.
Yeah. I would suggest definitely planning ahead, planning to spend longer in
Yeah.
Japan. Don't do any rush trips. If you wanted to visit somewhere that's going to be busy, even like a shrine or something in Kyoto, even though it's outdoors, it's going to be busy because it's very popular. Any popular place, I would recommend going right when they open or 1 hour before they close. Don't go in the middle of the day. I mean, those kind of basic advice for avoiding crowds, right?
I think maybe people can look online the advice for photographers, and that would give them
Yeah.
a good hint about when to go to places. Like the shrines tend to be open all the time. You just can't buy your Lucky Charms, for example, if you go too early, but you can still see most of the things, and the light can be really good. I think we
Mm-hmm.
have like sunlight already at around 4:30 nowadays. It
Yeah.
depends on if you're
I
east or west, but it's
I've
like
been seeing a lot of recommendations to go around center Tokyo in 4 a.m. or 3 a.m. so that you can get the best pictures of like
yeah,
Shibuya
yeah.
Crossing or the busy places, but you don't have the crowds. That's good advice. I think for
And
any city, that's good advice, right?
And one additional maybe advice would be to look online to see if you can find some activities where you can just do control drones, so you can see Japan controlling really what you see in a completely different way,
Ah,
and maybe get some of
interesting.
the footage as part of your memory, something people take photos and use their iPhones and stuff, but having drone stuff, people don't. That can be kind of unique. It's really cool.
Yeah, when we talked to Dave in Osaka, he did a drone tour around the tea fields in
Hmm.
I think Shizuoka, and then in Seeking Sustainability Live number 3, we talked to some photographers, and Chris Moore is doing
I know him, yeah. He
a
does a really
lot
good
of
job. Yeah.
drone videos. So there is some beautiful drone footage that you can watch, but I think hopefully maybe an idea for tourism to have like drone rentals in a rural area and people can try it and see the area from above. It's a different, interesting
It's not
vantage
just
point.
rental, in fact, because if you're a new user, it's impossible just to do rental.
Yeah.
So you would have maybe a kind of class, like you can have like this kind of photo safari in Tokyo or Osaka. You would go to a specific area. You would have somebody who can just teach you how to use the thing, let you go through, and would also know the law where you can go, things like this. And you would have a different product for people who can already control drones. But I think for insurance purpose, most of the times there will need to be the equivalent of a guide, basically, with you.
Yeah, there's a lot of paperwork, I think, and you have to register and know the right area. So maybe in the future we'll see more people giving explanations how to do drone, or please try the drone, like you said, training activities. Tomomi Harada, thank you for your comment. She says, thank you for sharing our Japan. I really enjoyed it. Thank you, Tomomi. And thank you so much, Sebastian. If you want to learn more about Sebastian's wonderful ideas about how to travel, please find him on Japan Travel, as well as sebastianduval.com. You have your blog and lots of information.
People can find me on LinkedIn too, if they want to have a career in Japan, maybe as a guide or something like this.
Yeah, get in touch. And
I give
Twitter.
advice for two vegans.
Twitter, Facebook, sebastianduval.com, or Japan Travel. You can find a lot of your great work. And good luck with everything you're doing. Thank you so much, Sebastian.
Thanks. It was a really good moment with you, and I'm happy I could share so much.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of frustrations going forward in tourism, but I think with people like you being positive and trying to encourage local areas, I think there's a lot of good things we can do. So thank you very much for all of your hard work.
Thank you.
Thank you. Everybody have a good day. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Have a nice weekend.